No worries. Okay. Okay, it started. We're on. So it's me, Marty, RJ Chemicals, operations director of our fogging division, and doing a little bit of in-service training for fogging with the Hurricane Fogger and Ultralyte for the folks at Grove Park Home.
Yep.
What I wanted to do, Travis, is just kind of, casually go over what, kind of the things that you and I had touched on in the past. I know it was a little while ago. I usually do like it to be a more an interactive thing, but what we can always do, of course, is you and I can just follow up if people have questions, that sort of thing.
Sure.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over a little bit of what Ultralyte is, a 2-minute demonstration on what Ultralyte is. I've got a couple of slides. I'm not sure if you remember, and they were kind of comparison slides and why it's so safe slides, as well as a video that you haven't seen before. And it's actually taken at another care home customer of ours and how they fog it. So I thought I'd just share that with you in this as well. Hopefully the recording captures that as well. Okay. If not, I can always link you to that later. That's easily doable. So what I'm going to touch on, folks, is the Ultralyte itself, hypochlorous, what it is, what it does, why it's so safe for you and I to use, why it is so safe environmentally. Then some of the techniques of fogging. A lot of these things, once you start using it, you might, you might have a few questions, but you will probably more likely see them as really common sense things, or things that make sense to you once you start using them. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what Ultralyte is, it's 100% hypochlorous. We're all really familiar with hypochlorite, with bleach. Okay, so it's not bleach, it's not hypochlorite. It is a chlorous species, though, and because it's a chlorous species, we can test it with simple chlorine test strips. You guys have probably seen these. You probably use them either at Grove Park or in other areas. A little touch of background on bleach, on hypochlorite, that maybe gives you a bit of a frame of reference, and that is, in your water, in our typical tap water, we have chlorine at about 2 to 4 parts per million. We all know that little bit of a chlorinated taste in water, right? Like here in Toronto, it's maybe 5 parts per million, so it's a little bit more chlorinated. You also know that smell of a swimming pool. When we get near a swimming pool, you can smell that swimming pool smell. That's about 5 or 10 parts per million of chlorine. Okay. Now, when you get up to 20, 30, 50 parts per million of chlorine, that's when you start to turn things white. Okay. Now, this is the Ultralyte. You've probably recognized the label. You've seen it around your facility. Whether it is in a bottle like this, or maybe in a 4-liter jug or a 20-liter jug, that sort of thing. This is the Health Canada DIN certified version, and it's 500 parts per million. So I'm just going to show you the activity with those chlorine strips that I was just putting in front of the screen. And let's see if we're doing this so you can see it. So you can see how that matches the purple activation. Actually, shoot it on that side. The purple activation, and this is 500 parts per million. It's the Health Canada DIN certified version. So, if I was to do this with chlorine, with bleach that was 500 parts per million, or even 100 or 50 parts per million, if I did this, sprayed it on my hand like that, that would really hurt. Okay. If I sprayed it on my shirt, it's a gray shirt. Gray dress shirt. If I did that, that would for sure turn this gray shirt white. It would, at 500 parts per million, it would probably put a hole right in it. okay? And I definitely would not do this with it, okay? So I know that if you kind of going, whoa, right? So what I want to do is share a slide with you. Hopefully this comes across in the recording. And it has to do with why it's so safe. And let's get it going here. It's the next slide. Down, and there it is. And it's the human response. The reason that I can spray it in my mouth like that is that we're all familiar with when an intruder comes into our body, a virus or a bacteria, and our brain says, send white cells to that site where that intruder comes in and attack it and kill it. So what our white cells do is, you can see this nice little graphic on the side, and that's a white cell coming to that site and surrounding that bacteria or virus, that intruder. And what it does is it kills it immediately. And so if you have enough white cells, then you're fine. If you don't, that's when you get sick, right? So it surrounds that bacteria or virus, and it kills it instantly in about 45 milliseconds. Actually, we have it at the bottom, within milliseconds. There you are. And it does that by secreting hypochlorous onto it. So Ultralyte is hypochlorous. So that's why it's so safe, because it's something that's in our body. It is actually part of the human response. In fact, you know, I'm not saying that anybody spray this in your mouth, so don't, okay? But what it did when I sprayed it in my mouth effectively said to my brain, some hypochlorous has just been released, make more white cells. Okay, so that gives you a kind of a neat idea of why it's so safe. I'm going to just switch to that previous slide that just as I was getting to this one. And the reason I like to have this one there, so that you can see it in Travis, I can always send both of these to you at some point if you'd like. And that is simply because it's a one slide that kind of says everything, because we're all familiar with all these things across the top. We've used them in various facilities as different sanitizers, whether they bleach, quartz, peroxyacetic, which is hydrogen peroxide, or ozone or alcohol, the most common hand sanitizer probably right now, chlorine dioxide, a really good sanitizer, very dangerous, and then Ultralyte. And you know, if we look at down the side, and you look at something like, let's say, quaternary ammoniums, because quartz are probably the most common sanitizer out there. So kills all bacteria, spores, mold, viruses, and superbugs. Quartz, no. Hypoallergenic, no. Can be used anywhere. A CFI food or in hospital, question mark. Can be applied directly to fruits or vegetables, no. Can be used as a hand sanitizer, question mark. Kills in 45 milliseconds, no. Breaks down in water, no. Forms toxic fumes, yes. Kills aquatic life, yes. Can burn or dry skin, yes. Then when you look over at Ultralyte and all of those things, Ultralyte kills all bacteria. It can be applied directly to fruits and vegetables. Kills in 45 milliseconds. And then any of those forms toxic fumes, kills aquatic life, can burn dry skin. It doesn't do any of those things. So it is that safe. And that's one thing I always really like to have people kind of grab a hold of, just so that, you know, when we're fogging it in our various facilities, we can feel comfortable. And we know good that we can feel good for, one, the people we're doing the job for, you know, the residents of the facility, but also for our own safety. All right. Now, I'm going to go over, you know, I like to say, let's go over safety stuff and PPE and so on. And I always say to people, you know, we have a fogging division, and before COVID, we didn't wear masks because we didn't need to. We now do wear masks, but it's not because we're fogging hypochlorous. It's because we're fogging for COVID typically. Okay. sometimes when it's known COVID, we also wear goggles. And because this fogger that you now have, the blue fogger, and I can just kind of, hold it up and you recognize it. It's the hurricane fogger. It's called the hurricane fogger for a reason. Some of you might have turned it on. I do recommend all my guys use the earplugs, the little nice little roll up earplugs. I'm going to just change this share back to our full screen again. And what I want to do now is go over the fogger itself. Okay. Travis, you guys use the Fogmaster Junior, correct?
Marty, yeah, we use the Fogmaster Junior and the Long Ray.
Yeah, the Fogmaster Junior and the Long Ray. Both good solid units. The Hurricane, I will say, is an even more solid unit. Because I've done a lot of fogging jobs myself, I can tell you that one time I was fogging actually a keg in Niagara Falls, overlooking the falls at between midnight and 5 in the morning is when it had to be done. And I just had one of these, and I was fogging, and it was on a ledge. It got the cord got kicked, it fell off a ledge like 5 feet. And I thought, oh, what am I going to do now? Right, with no fogger. I just took it, plugged it back in, and it worked. So this is like ballistic plastic, and the engine is super simple and really robust. Just from a standpoint of going over the fogger itself, from an operational standpoint, it's a very, very simple 3-prong plug-in that we all know. The unit itself has a reservoir, and it's a 4-liter reservoir. The reservoir cap, very simple unscrew, fairly easy fill. I always get people to use a funnel. I mean, it's wide enough that you could free pour it, you could hand pour it if you like. Funnel is quite a bit easier, I find. The cap has an extra pressure release on this little item, so it regulates the pressure, which is kind of nice. The machine itself on top has an on-off switch. Again, very simple, straightforward. The head of the Hurricane is quite a bit different than the Long Ray or the Fogmaster, and it's probably comparable with the Long Ray from the standpoint of how far it will go. The Fogmaster Junior will go about 10 to 12 feet, maybe 15 max, and it's one straight fog path. The Long Ray, you have a wand and you can wave it around. Sometimes that's good for getting into areas. The one thing is, whenever you wave around a fogger, whether it's that hand thing or this unit or this head, your fog stream won't go quite as far. So you want to be a little bit aware of that. But this is kind of nice because you have this key on the side here, and that controls this head. So it's fixed, loosen it, and you can move it around. So what enables you to do, it enables you to sit it on a table and have it in one spot, turn it on, do a couple of other things in the room, whatever you have to do, and then come back, because this has been going and fogging the room the whole time. And because unlike the other 2 foggers, this is what we would call a tri-jet fogger. So it actually has three fogging jets coming out of it. So instead of that, it's really sort of more narrow directed, the fog that you get from the Long Ray especially, and a little bit from the Fogmaster Junior. You get 20 to 25 feet, but you also get a wider fog pattern. So just a little bit more on the fogger itself. From an adjustability standpoint, right under that key that we were talking about, that key that determines the angle of the fog head, you have a little dial, and it goes from 1 to 10. What we ask people to do is line up I'm not sure if you can see this terribly well, but there's a little notch here in the front. We might be able to line up number 3 to 4 with that notch, and that'll give you a fog size of between 10 and 20 microns. That's kind of what we like to see. If it's a little bit less than that, fine. If it's a little bit more than that, fine as well. But you typically don't want it to be more than that unless you really want to get something wet. Okay. Now, this dial that we're looking at, okay, when you move it, it kind of it has some resistance to it. If you ever get to the point where this dial spins freely, and it seems like that seems wrong, it's like it's too easy to spin. Well, there is a little hole right in the front of it. And I don't know if you noticed when you opened the box for the foggers, but taped onto one of the cardboard flaps of the inside packing material is a very small Allen wrench. And as it happens, if you have an Allen wrench set, because that thing always goes missing because it's just one. If you have an Allen wrench set, it's about the second or third smallest of the Allen wrenches on your Allen wrench set. You simply put it into that little hole, turn it clockwise, snug it up a bit, and then you'll feel that grab and you'll be able to set that properly again. Okay. If you're not able to do that, the fogger will still work, and that's not a problem. The last thing before I go on to just regular fogging technique is the filter on the fogger. Okay. It is a pulse fog, a pulse engine, and it simply pulls air in the back and shoots it out the front. This is the filter that comes with it. It's an open celled foam, so it's letting the air through, but it's catching the larger dust particulate, so it doesn't get into the engine. If this wasn't there, the unit would still work. Some extra dust would get into the engine, which just means your fogger wouldn't last as long. So, try and try not to lose these. You can always get replacement units from us if you need to. I think they come in 3 or 6 packs or something. But if you can, just on a weekly basis, just take this, run it under warm water, warm soapy water if you want, if it's particularly dirty, and it will clean it right up. Just squeeze it out, put it back in, and away you go. Now, from a fogging technique standpoint, which is probably the biggest thing, when I'm talking to people about fogging effectively and making this biocide work for you and kill things like COVID, norovirus, it handles it all, right? I know COVID is kind of top of our mind right now, and you want to really kind of take a two-pronged approach to fogging. And I'm going to use this room as kind of an example of the way to do it. So what I get people to do is when you start out, you turn the fogger on and direct that fogger on that 45-degree angle roughly up to those back corners of the room. So let's just say this is like an office, a 15 by 15 office kind of size. What you're going to do is you're going to be in the middle, whether you're holding it or whether you put it on a table or a cart. A lot of people do that. Is to point it at each corner of that room and have it going up into that corner for about 20 seconds. And what you're going to see is you're going to see the fog come out of the fogger, and then you're going to see it go into the corner. And depending lighting, factors in. So depending on the lighting, you'll see it when it hits that corner. And you want to just leave it static at that corner, as opposed, you don't want to be waving it around. You want to have it going to that corner at full strength, because you want the fog coming out and the air behind it pushing that fog, and then the air behind that pushing that fog, and that's what gets it that maximum distance and maximum coverage. So you will see that fog going into that corner and then starting to come back out and billow around. You're going to do that for 20 seconds in each corner of this room or that office. And that's going to create what we call an environmental fog. So what you do is you're basically creating a fog blanket in this whole room, and gravity being gravity, even though that's, a fine, 10 to 20 micron droplet. And to give you an idea of the relative size of droplets, the droplets that we have coming out of that spray, the spray bottle, that's roughly 250 to 300 microns in size, each of those droplets. So as we know, they just go right like that. These droplets hang in the air, and it's going to take about 14 minutes for like a 10 micron or a 20 micron droplet to descend from that ceiling down to the floor. And what it does is, as it comes down, you have this air, the air currents in the room. It circulates it, so it comes into contact with maximum, whether it's spores or whatever it happens to be that are in the air, comes into contact with them, oxidizes them on contact, and so it's doing that as it descends. So you get that motion and it's descending. And if you were to take a look at, there's a table in front of me, probably a table in front of you right now. There are things called moisture coupons, and moisture coupons look kind of like Post-it notes. And what happens is if I put a Post-it note on that table in front of me or in front of you and environmentally fogged this room, after the fog came down, we would see hundreds or thousands of tiny little droplets on that moisture coupon. Well, how are things being covered completely? Well, if you took that same or a similar moisture coupon and put it on the underside of that table, and you let that fog come down, and it's moving in the air currents, a lot of the air currents that you've created, but there are air currents in every room, even when it seems like it's a still room. Afterwards, after the fog settled, you would take that moisture coupon from underneath the table and hold it up, and you would see hundreds or thousands of tiny little droplets on that as well. And so that's why we environmental fog, because we're going to fill this whole room, and it's going to, with the air currents that you've created and that exist in the room, it's going to cover all those little nooks and crannies in the room that are just really, it's hard to clean them all, right? It would take 5 minutes to fog this room, but it would probably take 10 hours to properly clean and disinfect it by hand. Okay, so that's environmental fogging. The second part is called directional fogging, and directional fogging is also a really important one. And you will know this, especially being at a care home facility, is that you have high touch areas, things like hand railings, light switches, elevator buttons. I'm sure you can come up with many more just like that. And those places you want to pay a little bit of extra attention to. The environmental aspect we'll get some, but you want a little extra there. So take that a light switch as an example. So what you want to do when you're directionally fogging something, you want to be 6 feet or 6 to 10 feet away from that light switch, because you don't want so much fog on it that water starts dripping down. That's sort of the way to look at it. If water starts dripping down, you've got a bit too much. But about 6 feet away, and you would just take this and just angle it or hold it at that light switch, at that handrail, at those elevator buttons, and let it go for really only about 5 seconds, maybe 10. Okay, but that's just a rough guideline. And that's going to just get you that little bit extra, and it's going to have a little bit more time on that surface, where you have not only some potential virus, but also some potential organics just from hands and traffic. So that's really the fogging aspect of it, and it is fairly simple. You will probably go into some areas where you'll find some different things work for you. In fact, we're going to show you a video in a minute of someone fogging in a care home, and you can see kind of how he does it. But we have people, for example, that will fog hallways, and they'll put it on a cart, on a dolly cart, or one of those food cart kind of things. Have it plugged in down the hall with an extension cord, and just slowly back down the hall with it, so they can get that hallway, they can get that common area, and those things. You can talk with Travis, or you can get in touch with me if you have further questions about certain areas, because different rooms are different. We showed this room, which is rectangular, almost square, and how to attack that. That's going to be your typical room, but airflow is affected by many things in a room. It can be the number of people you have. It can be if there's a draft. Sometimes in some rooms, a window can be open. Well, you want to make sure that windows are closed. You want to make sure that if there's HVAC, you take that in consideration. If you can turn it off, turn it off. And if you can't, then understand that, if I'm shooting fog from here to 20 feet out and there's HVAC blowing across 10 feet out, that fog is only reaching 10 feet. And so then you need to go to the other side if you can't turn that HVAC off. Also, if you have an irregular shaped room, you might have to, instead of just doing, 4 times 20 seconds in the 4 corners, is you might do roughly 4 times that 20 seconds in the 4 corners, and then fill in some of those areas in between where maybe a ceiling peaks, or you have a little jut off area, a cubicle in a room. So kind of use your, I'll say, common sense, but to know that those extra spaces might need a little bit of extra attention. The great thing about Ultralyte is that even if you do extra, it's so safe that doing extra isn't hurting anybody, isn't hurting you, isn't hurting any residents. So, just to sort of finish up before I show you that video that I wanted to show you, I really wanted to talk just a little bit about safety from the standpoint of the chemical kind of after use. Now, a lot of things you will see on MSDS sheets or WMS sheets, what have you, where they'll say they'll have ways to, that you have to dispose of it this way. There are special precautions. Some will be, for example, quaternary ammoniums we talked about before. And one of the things on that list was kills aquatic life. So if you put it down a drain and it goes out into the lake where you get your water supply, you could be killing the fish in that water supply. Ultralyte does not have that limitation. It also doesn't have the limitation of harming any pipes or water processing, any of that sort of thing. So that it's not only effective, but it's also environmentally safe and therefore environment friendly. Travis, I'm just going to put this video on, if I can share that. This is at a care home actually in London, Ontario. And they fogged actually I'm going to say for 8 or 9 years. So they fogged well before COVID. Here we go. But they've had great success during COVID as well.
Hi, it's Rob from Rural Support Long-Term Care Home in London, Ontario. Just here to talk about the Ultralyte product that we've been using for some time here. And, one of the things during COVID, in long-term care, we have sanitizer everywhere. The 4 moments of hand hygiene, before entering a room, at the bedside care, after care when you leave the room, and virtually everywhere you walk in a home. But we don't have portable disinfecting devices. We use toxic products in our industry, but at Earl's Crib, we do use a product called Ultralyte. This is a typical space here. This area is used for our visits with our families so that we have our indoor space and right outside the outdoor space. But this space needs to be sanitized after every use. It would be a labor-intense thing to do, wiping down every possible area, surface that could have been come in contact with COVID. So by using the fogger, we can spray down this area very quickly, have it prepped, ready to go for the next person. So we're going to give you a little demonstration of kind of how that fogger works. And I can tell you that it's been very effective. Our staff love the device. In fact, they demand when we run out of product, and we make sure we give them product. They'll be on the phone right away on the on-call phone, let me know, hey, we need more product. So these are PSWs who are not certified individuals in mechanics or anything like that, who are able to use it everywhere. We use it up and down the halls. Residents are asleep at night, ideal time to spray every area. During COVID, we use break rooms on all of our floors, as everyone must not have staff move off their floor. So now there's intensified number of people on the floors, more reason to spray those confined spaces. And the number one way that the government's identified COVID has spread through break rooms with staff. So really critical to get those areas done well.
There, we're back. So that just gives you, I just wanted to give you that idea of someone using it in practice, or maybe give you some ideas of how they're using it. Travis, did you have any Any thoughts or questions from, I know that, you've had folks doing fogging for a while with the other foggers. This is this one specifically. But did you have any questions? One, about the specific fogger, but two, also about fogging in general, what you've been seeing or any challenges that you have.
Hi, Marty. Yeah, no, when it comes to fogging, I think we've done a pretty good job of kind of mastering the process, especially your explanation supporting what we've been doing has been helpful. I just wanted to be a bit more familiar with the Hurricane. It came with the filter, and I wasn't sure if the filter needed to be installed in it. But that question's been answered as well. And I don't really think I have anything.
Just wash this?
Yeah, just wash it.
Just wash with water?
Yep.
And does this?
That's a
stay-
pressure valve, so you can
Does
pump
that,
it back on.
does this always stay on here?
Yeah. The pressure valve, it always stays on, right?
Sorry, what are we talking about?
On the Hurricane, where where you put the ultralight in to the basin.
Oh, the cap, the reservoir cap,
Yeah.
black,
There's
the black cap. Yeah. So once you've filled it with the amount you want to fill it, then just screw it right back on. And
Okay.
it's its own pressure release. I mean, without it, I mean, if the cap got broken and you didn't have it, the thing would still work. So yeah. So
Okay, so the other thing is just the strap or whatever is just to keep the cap close by, right?
yeah, the cap actually has it has a tether on it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I always keep it tethered. I mean, if you lose the tether, again, not a big deal. Use the cap. I mean, really, it's as much making sure that it doesn't spill as anything. I mean, like the other units, try and use up when you're using it. Try and use it up completely. If you don't, try and rinse the whole thing out with water and just run it for a couple of minutes. Once a week. Just because it'll make any machine last longer if you do that.
And then would you say, if you're not going to use it for a specific, number of days or weeks, to make sure there's no ultralight in it?
I would try and do that. I would say no matter what you're doing, whether it's ultralight or water or whatever it is, that it's really, and even if I know things get busy, but even if every now and then someone has some time and you haven't been able to get around to it, just have someone kind of, put some water in it and just run it and kind of blow it out.
Okay.
And you can run it and blow some out, so send some through it, and then run it till it's dry and you're not hurting it.
Okay. Did you say you can run water through it?
Yeah, absolutely. You can with any of the foggers, the other two as well. And
Yeah, I recall the long ray being suggested that you run water through it if you're kind of putting it away for a while.
Yeah.
And then for PPE, you recommend earplugs.
Yeah, really,
Louder than the long ray or the same?
the Hurricane's a bit louder than the long ray, I would say. Not,
Okay.
the of the three, I would say the Fogmaster Junior is the quietest one. The Hurricane's probably the loudest one. I would say the Hurricane is I'll say the best fogger in that, before COVID, it was the one we recommended. It was the go-to. Once we had COVID, there was a global fogger shortage.
Right.
And we couldn't get the Hurricanes. We tried, we sourced foggers from all over the world. We had one from Guam, I remember. I don't know, just because it's a little island in the middle of nowhere. And then, we got all these ones and tried them, and a lot of them just didn't work.
Okay.
Or they worked sort of, but we know that the Fogmaster Junior did a good job, the Long Ray did. But now that we can get the Hurricane again, it's going to be, if anyone's saying to me, which fogger should I use? If I can get it, it's the one that I'm going to recommend first.
Okay.
Yeah, both a reliability standpoint, but also just like the efficacy and the coverage, for fogging. Yeah.
And that was all the questions we had, Marty.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that was easy. Thanks, guys.
No, thank you. Yeah, it helped that we were familiar with the whole process, right? So it just was more of learning how this one operates.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I thought, this isn't like, it isn't so different from the other one, but it's a different enough, and it has some extra pluses, that I thought when you said, hey, let's do an in-service, I thought, great idea. And, to do it like kind of a little bit of a refresher, or to have some questions that maybe that I didn't address a year and a half ago have come up when people are using them. That's
Right.
always a good thing to kind of reinforce some of those things. So absolutely. One of the things I thought about as I was watching Rob, that's the gentleman who was at Earl's Court in London with the sort of check shirt on. He uses it, he fogs it, but he also uses it in spray bottles. I don't know if you guys have been using it. He uses it. I'll tell you, it's kind of his story, but he had me at his facility and was showing me in the dining room area, and a typical dining room area, round tables that could seat maybe 6 or 8 people, kind of thing. And we were there after lunch doing a tour, and he had people cleaning the tables, and people were cleaning. Now at the time they were using a quaternary ammonium cleaner, unfortunately, but they're not anymore. And they were using a spray bottle. And he said microfiber cloths, because that's standard. A microfiber is the best, right? Most effective. And he said, okay, this is what they're doing. They're spraying and then wiping the table, and then they move on to the next table. And he said, so if they're doing that, does that mean like that they could be wiping one table and then going over to the next table and wiping that one and bringing a germ from one table to the next table? And I said, yeah, that's a vector that could be the case. And he said, well, we have to wipe off the quaternary ammoniums because they're toxic, right? And he said, so with this Ultralyte, it's not toxic and it's completely safe, right? And I said, yeah. And so he changed his SOP for cleaning in the dining room, actually, from spray the table and wipe it to just wipe the crumbs off, and then just take the spray gun, put it on mist, and then just mist the whole table and leave it. And they've been doing that ever since. So he's been doing that for a number of years now. So I just thought, when I saw him, I thought, oh, I've got to just mention that to you, because I know I've mentioned it to a number of people over the years who have said, oh, that's something we might try. So there you are. I'm going to hit the, let's see, where is that? I know we're doing the, trying to do the record here, right?
Oh, it should just stop when we end the meeting.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And then you'll get an email when the recording's ready.
That's awesome. I will, I'll see if I can save it and forward it to you, however that works.
Okay.
And I look forward to a time in the nicer weather when things actually do open up and I can come up and visit you in person.
Sounds good.
Thanks a lot, Travis.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Take care. Bye.